Hey guys, this is Emily Jones with Moms for Liberty here in Madison County. I did a video earlier this week and talked some about some legislative changes that are affecting our schools as a result of legislative session back in the spring. So I went over a law earlier this week where I talked about what I call the curriculum transparency law, which basically is requiring our public schools to post approved curriculum online. So parents have access, they can go in and look and see what their children are being taught in schools. It's kind of a peek behind the curtain, if you will, of what our kids are being exposed to, and parents can ask questions, raise concerns, whatever it may be as a result of that. So it's really good, trending in the right direction in terms of parental rights and parental access. So very, very excited about that. I mentioned the other day about another law that is going into effect on 1 October, and that's the law I want to cover tonight. It was called SB 129, and it prohibits DEI, or diversity, equity, inclusion, in our public institutions, educational institutions. As always, I'm not going to read this in detail because it's a lot of information, but I will post a link to the actual bill so you can see all of the details of it. It's not a lot, it's maybe 10 pages. It's pretty easily digestible. But it's just also a lot of content, and I don't want to read to y'all. So I'll hit the highlights on this, and then if you want to go dig into the details later, you'll have the link where you can do that. So just starting from the beginning, relating to DEI, prohibits certain public entities from maintaining diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, and from sponsoring these programs, to provide prohibitions on the promotion, endorsement, and affirmation of certain divisive concepts. It then goes on to describe what DEI, or divisive concepts, are. I'm going to kind of smush all these together because it's a lot, and there's a little bit of it that's repetitive. But anyways, DEI is any of the following concepts: that any race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior; that individuals should be discriminated against or adversely treated because of these characteristics; that moral character of an individual is determined by these characteristics; that an individual, based on these characteristics, is inherently responsible for actions committed in the past; and that fault, blame, or bias should be assigned to members based on these characteristics. So that's kind of how they're defining diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. So it's a little bit more detail in there. It breaks each one of those out, but you get the point of what they're trying to do there. The next section talks about institutions may not do any of the following. They may not sponsor any DEI program, maintain an office, physical location, or a department. This was important, college parents. They may not have a department that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion. Pay attention to that because I'm going to point something out later that's going to revert back to that. Education institutions, they may not require students, employees, or contractors to attend or participate in any DEI program or training, orientation, or coursework that advocates for or requires assent of a divisive concept. Again, lots more information in there if you wanted to read it. The next thing it talks about is disciplinary actions. So in section 3 of the bill, it says that all state agencies and local school boards may discipline or terminate the employment of an employee or contractor who knowingly violates this act. Now it says they may, it doesn't say they're required to. So they have the option. If something is egregious enough to warrant termination, they can do that, but they don't necessarily have to do that. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to point out was what they can do. So prohibiting DEI just means you cannot assign fault or blame on someone based on the descriptions I shared earlier. What institutions can do is talk about historical information or historical acts in their historical factual nature. So a teacher could talk about slaves and how our country did have slaves originally, But over the years, we fought to correct that, and now we do not. That is appropriate, that is allowed under this law. So we're not erasing history. We're not trying to squash what happened or hide it. We just want to make sure that the conversation around that is historically accurate. So teachers are allowed to do that. It does not impact their ability to talk through some of those darker moments in our nation's history, and we should talk about them. We need to make sure children know how wrong that was so that we do not repeat it. So that's the bill in a nutshell. I am going to take a quick second and show you a couple of things on my screen. And I do this every time. I forget how to share my screen. Okay. So I mentioned a minute ago about the curriculum transparency law. So if you go out to your school's website, in a lot of places, you're going to find that there's a reference under the counseling section to what is the ASCA, the American School Counselor Association. If your school has that, you need to dig into the ASCA. It's very alarming what you will find. When you go to their homepage, just the ASCA, I guess it's probably that one, you're not going to see anything alarming to it. Now, I've spent a lot of time looking into the ASCA. It's a national organization. It's in all 50 states. So I have, an above average knowledge about the ASCA. So that's why I have all this information at my fingertips. I just kind of know where to go. But if you look into the ASCA at the top level, there's not a lot of concerns. You'll look at the homepage and everything looks legit. But if you dig into it a little bit more, you're going to start finding stuff that's very concerning and very much in line with what this new law, the DEI bill, DEI law, prohibits in our state. So if you look under standards and policies, there's something down here about the position statements. This is the website I'm going to show you. This download all position statements. It's like 120-page PDF, and it literally walks through all their different views on stuff. But this is, I just went to the web page of it, and that's what you can see here. So this is the same PDF, but this kind of walks through their position statements. All of these over here are different topics in the position statement. Some of them are, not an issue whatsoever. We would probably all agree on. Others, not so much. But I mean, you can see there's a lot of them in here. But the one I wanted to kind of point out for the purpose of DEI is this one about school counselor and anti-racist practices. So keep in mind that our public schools in Alabama, I'm not going to say all of them because I've not looked at every single one of them, but almost every one of them that I've looked into, the school counselors are members of the ASCA. The school is saying they follow the framework of the ASCA. So very much linked together between our local schools and what the ASCA puts out in terms of their guidelines. So this one talks about anti-racist practices. There's a whole lot here, as you can see. I'm not going to go through all of it. I just wanted to highlight this sentence right here that's in the blue. The U.S. education system contributes to maintaining systems of oppression through racist policies, practices, and guidelines that negatively affect all students, but especially students from racially diverse backgrounds. This in here, you have it talking about white supremacy in the United States. This is everything that bill that I just read is talking about being prohibited in our schools. So now you can kind of see the connectivity between the curriculum transparency and what is being prohibited in this DEI law. So very quickly, we can deduce that there's some issues here that we're going to have to deal with as a state in terms of what we're allowing and what we're not allowing. So dig into this more if you want. If you've got questions on it, let me know. I can talk about ASCA all day long. There's so much. The other two things I wanted to show are just a couple of articles. This is more for our college parents, college-age kid parents. The University of Alabama and Auburn have both said that they're disbanding their DEI offices and programs. They're not getting rid of the people. They're just disbanding the DEI office, and they're moving all the people into a new office. And there is an acronym out there. I cannot remember what it is. Something about opportunities. So if you've got kids in college, this is where you really need to focus. Where are these people going? What are they doing? And we need to be keeping eyes on them. So I can post links to these articles as well. They're slightly older, I mean, a month or two. But it gives some good information in there. It's got links to some previous articles that 1819 had put out as well. This is the one about Auburn doing the same thing. This one's not quite as old, but back in July. So there's good info out here that talks about all of this. The thing for the University of Alabama, I will say it's not just the university, it's also UAB and UAH. So any of those universities, keep an eye on them, dig into that. And then the other thing, this is a more recent article. This was with State Rep Ed Oliver. He was really the big one, the big push behind this bill getting passed this past year. So he's just basically saying, like, we're aware of some of these issues. We're going to continue to monitor it. They are working to figure out, if a parent has a concern, how do they elevate that? How do we report it? All the things. So the law does not go into effect quite yet. It goes into effect October the 1st, so not far away. So schools have a little bit more time to try to clean up a couple of these things, which is great. So if you're finding things, go ahead and report it now. So they've got time to get it cleaned up before the bill goes, or the law goes into effect. But after 1 October, if we find stuff, we've got to make sure that we're reporting it so that we can get this stuff cleaned up. And again, don't look for just the words DEI. Look at the law, understand that language and what it is, what the divisive concept is, how to translate that. So as you're digging through, school curriculum, homework, as your kids coming home from college, whatever it is, make sure you understand the concepts that we're dealing with so you can identify them. If you have questions on anything, please reach out. Let us know. This is a whole new world for a lot of people, and you're all not weirdos like me who just thrive on this stuff and sit around and read legislation all day long because you've got lives and apparently I don't. But if you have questions, let us know. We're here to help as always. This is definitely a generational fight. We've got to start chipping away at it, and it starts by educating ourselves and then educating our kids to know what's going on as well. So if you have questions, reach out, let us know. And yeah, keep an eye out for future videos. We're going to try to do more of these just to try to help get parents up to speed so they know what their rights are. And if you've got questions, you need help understanding something or suggestions on other things you want us to cover, by all means, send those our way. Thanks, guys.